tuning in again with Let's Talk About It with Xavier Fox, and I am here with a wonderful panel today, having another conversation because you know I love conversations, and I've had many of them over the years, and you guys seem to enjoy them as well. So today we are talking about a very important topic. This is not only Breast Cancer Month, it is Domestic Violence Awareness Month as well. A lot of you have experienced this and had your own journey through domestic violence, whether you were a victim of it or if you were the one doing it. Okay, I'm making light of everything because, you know, we got to get a few laughs in here. But so today I want to introduce someone who I have been trying to have an event or show or something with for God, how many years? We were doing plus. Some kind of something back in the day, and I was saving all of the entries to my computer, and then I didn't know. I've never been good with technology, y'all. Then I didn't know how to get it off my computer and give it to you.
Exactly.
But my computer downstairs, I still got it. So anyway, this is Serena Martin. Thanks for finally joining me here.
Thank you.
And tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do and all this good stuff.
All right. My name is Serena Martin. I am the founder and executive director of an organization, Mahogany Cares. And we serve those who've been affected by domestic and sexual violence. Our focus is Black women and girls. And yeah, that's what we do. We have conversations on healing and wellness. We have group, and then we just have services and support for anybody who's been affected by
Well, I'm so happy that you joined me, and I'm happy to be supporting your cause as well. It's actually dear to me as well. I have several friends who, you know, are survivors, so it's that, and I've heard the stories. You know, I've heard the stories, and it's very touching. So you have a great group here today, and this is going to be a great conversation because we have survivors, and we also have people on the other side of the fence who are now healed and are here to share their stories as well. So go ahead and introduce everybody.
Yeah, we have an incredible panel here. They will be sharing their own stories and also kind of their way through the community. We're all advocates, providers, supporters of domestic violence and ending domestic violence in our community. So we're gonna just have them introduce themselves one at a time, but with a question. So first we have Ms. Zola, and she is salon owner and survivor. Would you mind sharing with us how you made that kind of transition from survivor and now caretaker, provider, and how was that process, that healing process for you?
You know, it's been a journey, actually. It's been a journey, and it continues to be a journey. You know, you think they're kind of over a hump, and then you realize there's still work to be done, not just for others, but for yourself. And for years, I've offered services, prayer, led to resources for others without people really understanding what I was going through at home. And a lot of times we will reach out to others to help others in situations we wished other people would help us in. So now I feel led to begin to tell my story. And the stories that I've bore witness from loved ones of my own, my grandmothers and so on, in hopes that it will help deliver in those areas because we're strong. We're strong and resilient. But if I tell you, I am so tired of hearing that word resilient.
Thank you.
I'm tired. My resilience does not mean that I'm not tired. My resilience does not mean that I'm not broken on the inside. It just means that I continue to go and I continue to fight. Me being resilient doesn't mean that I'm healed.
That's right.
And that's what we have. We have a lot of resilient people just going on and on and on, unhealed, undelivered, unloved, or at least feeling unloved, unnurtured, uncared, because we got stuff to do. We got a family to raise.
Right.
We got children to provide for. We got a church to serve in. We got a community to take care of. And so we're now at more of segueing into, because I've always been about outreach into a new realm, which we talked about, which we will be calling safe space, because there are many of us that are caretakers that aren't getting resources. We're giving the resources, and our cup is empty.
That's right.
And we need to get poured back into, but we're resilient. We're too busy helping others. We cannot look like, we don't have it
Been
together,
through.
right? Right. We haven't been through nothing. So now we need a safe space where we can get amongst our peers
That's right.
and begin to uplift,
support
encourage,
each other.
and get poured back into, and learn to give from our saucer.
Learn
left
to give
over.
from our
Yeah,
saucer.
you got to learn to give from the
Don't let it
overflow.
deplete.
Yes.
Okay,
So
okay.
that's where I'm at right now in my journey.
Thank you so
Alright.
much.
Wow.
First, for sharing that you're a survivor. That's not easy. To
Listen.
just, we're live. That's not easy. So we
Mhm.
thank you for that, for sharing that, and that transparency. That's a lot. So
Is that
thank
part
you.
of the problem sometimes, because it's not easy to share that you're
Mhm.
being abused, so you don't tell anybody?
And not just that, when you finally say something, especially when you have been viewed as being a strong, resilient person, sometimes one of the first thing people say, well, what did you do?
Mm-hmm.
Think about the strong individuals when they finally come out and say that they were in abusive relationships. And this doesn't just come from men, it comes from women as well. Well, how did they provoke this? What did they do?
Mm-hmm.
The
You know,
blaming.
The
and-
blaming, because they're so, you come forth as a strong individual,
Mhm.
so.
And so when I knew you started, I say the thing that she hated was when people would say, why didn't you just leave?
Exactly.
Mhm.
And who can just leave? Who has first month's rent, security, pick up all your belongings in one bag, whatever you can carry in that bag,
Mhm.
and relocate with maybe children, maybe having to start a new job? Like, your whole life changes.
Yeah.
Who can do that? Just leave. Are you going to help them leave? Support them in leaving?
Yeah.
It takes a lot to leave. And we got to remember, domestic violence doesn't start with the violence. It starts with love.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Wow.
Yes.
I'm glad I'm here.
We're glad you're here
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
This is Pastor Robert Bell, and he is pastor and author. And would you mind kind of telling us a little bit about the author side and how you got to that point?
How I got to this point, here's the book, Eddie Berry
What is
White
it
Voices.
called?
Eddie Berry. I got a book for everybody here as well.
Thank you.
Awesome.
There you go.
And I have one.
Oh, you have one?
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
thank you.
Awesome.
Signed copy. I've got mine.
I'll sign
Oh,
you.
well.
I've got
Thanks
mine.
for saying that.
Right.
Signed.
How it all came about was once God got a hold of me, I was watching a TV evangelist. He was talking about God want to sow a seed for $50 and God will give it back 3 times. And I was gonna turn. I was like, and I was blowed. I was sitting there blowed, and but I couldn't turn the TV. And he said, "Look, you watching the TV." He said, "Hey," he said, "God told me to tell you that He gonna give you back everything the devil stole from you." And my heart burned. I'm talking about literally. My heart was burning, and I remember just going like this in that room, waiting on this girl to get home from work. And I was like this. I said, "Lord, I hear you speaking to me," but I said, "I don't see no way out." I was like, "I do not see a way out." 10 days later, I was in Teen Challenge Ministries on 91st and Appleton, because he brought to my remembrance this man that said that if I ever got into some trouble, his name was Mark Rainey. He died. I did his funeral like a year ago, and he said, "You ever need get in trouble, just get a hold of me." And so I did that, and so when I turned my life around, man, I started. People heard my testimony. This man came to me crying. I was at a church, and he said, "But look, you need to go back to school, and I'm gonna pay for it, and your books." So the first year, second year was paid. Third year, I was able to pay for it myself. But as I was going along, people were saying, "Man, you need to write a book, dude. You need your story, being a gang leader, and just so dope with my mom's,
That's quite a story, what you just said right there, from gang leader to pastor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a journey in itself.
In and out of prison most of my life. Lost a brother to a murder. Lost cousins to a murder. So you know what was
A lot of
happening.
violence.
Retaliation.
A lot of
Just
violence.
live this type of lifestyle, and I was found. It was Grace and Mercy found me, and so I was in Walgreens one day, and I kept people hearing people say, "Man, you need to write a book. You need to write a book." It was clear, and I was in Walgreens, and I looked down at some paper, and I knew exactly what I was supposed to do. I bought a 6-binder folder paper. I picked that bad boy up. I went home. I told my wife, I said, "Babe, here's the vision." I told her the vision. I said, "So at night, I'm gonna be downstairs. I'm gonna be burning a midnight candle." And I went down. It took me like 8.5 months, 5.5 years to come out. And God was sending me the people I needed. It was like crazy. If He give you vision, He'll provide the provision.
That's
And
right.
He sent me the people. He took me the long way, and it taught me patience and trust. And here I am.
That's a great thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a great thing.
Well, you're an advocate now
Mm-hmm.
for domestic violence. Is that in the book? Do we have to read it, or do you
Yeah,
want to share a
it's
little
in
bit
there.
about?
Yeah, once I got the girl I told you I was coming home with, she came home from work. When I was sitting there, and it was a little abuse in that time, you know, with her. And one of my triggers was like when she got slick, and I knew where it came from. You know, when I was a kid, you know, my mom, she was very dominant. So any woman, the few women, there was just a few women in my life that I was abusive to, and the lady, when my heart got turned around, I started changing the way I think. My mind started changing once I answered that call. When I went like this and doing those 10 days before I got into the treatment center, he was dealing with me in a heavy way, and I apologized to her. I was like, I was wrong. And it's just everybody that I could apologize to. It started with my moms, and never got physically with my moms, but I was abusive with verbally. And anybody I ran into, and people that I hurt along the way, I was just asking for forgiveness because I was very violent.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, I told you I was gonna ask questions.
Yeah, cool.
So, when you were being abusive, was there a rage? So, them being slick mouthed or whatever, did it send you into a rage? And do you have any memories of how you felt during that? As you were doing that, what were you feeling then?
It was different times. I may be feeling like this. Most of the time, the rage that came out of me was from hurt. I learned that. I expressed myself in anger, but I was really hurt from something.
That's right.
And me not meeting my real father, and just being in prison, I just felt rejected. Like I just felt like I always felt this feeling like I wasn't good enough. That I would never be nothing. You know, I just felt that. And on the outside, I was this guy, but on the inside, I was somebody else. But so it was different times that I would express myself in anger, but most of it came, and I talked to my mom about it. So we had a good talk, and everybody wanted to meet my mother and stuff like that. And I told her when you got slick it was a trigger for me, like for women, like getting real slick, and I'd be like, hey, say something else, you know. And especially if they call me out my name or you nigga, you know, such and such, and you'd be like, I ain't care who's around, your brother, whatever. I'll just get violent, you know.
So, okay, I gotta ask this question.
I'm that guy to put you at.
So I feel that we have a certain amount of accountability for the people that we choose.
Yeah.
So, do you feel you were choosing women who were similar to your mother because it was
Yes.
a comfortable place to be?
Yep. I always liked the women that was dominant to start off. And it's like my wife today. She was more like she was a leader. And if you ever meet her, she's not a soft woman, but we got a respect level. Yeah, she was known for that in the streets too, you know. I chose women like that. And but once I got in, I didn't like it no more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, once I got in, I was like tight clothes or, cause that's why I said it came from different places. Cause it would be jealousy, man. It could be. I was dealing with jealousy, all type of stuff. I didn't trust nobody. I had issues. I just had all these issues, and they would come out.
That jealousy.
Yeah, oh man, jealousy.
Yes,
Yeah, I would
that's
see
a
stuff that
big
wasn't
one.
even there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would hurt people that loved me and that never did nothing. That was just.
So my one last question.
Yeah.
Because you know you kind of stocky, so I know if you hit somebody, they probably do feel it.
Yeah.
And so when you were doing that, in the midst of, did you ever, I just want to know what goes on in your brain as you are hitting, that touch is coming. Because you mentioned touch and how people then have different reactions to
Yes.
it. So did
I
you
didn't care
ever
at
think
the
to
moment.
yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I hurting her?
No.
Or this is hurting her?
No.
No.
I was hurt, so I would hurt people. Like
Right.
when we talked about Dr. earlier. That's how we came out. And then I always would think I never felt good about it afterwards.
Right.
But at the moment, it seemed like that was the right thing to do. It was like, it's crazy. It was delusional. But that was my thinking pattern.
Okay.
So I had to relearn, unlearn, and learn some things.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's a lot to share. You're being very open book. We appreciate that. We've got questions. We want to know. So we don't get to have
Hey,
these
it says
conversations.
let's talk about it. That's the name of the
We're
show.
gonna
So
talk
we'll
about
talk about it.
Exactly. And we'll get back to you a little
Yeah.
bit. I'm sure we have more questions. Dr. William Wallace is here. He is a program director, and we'll let him tell us a little bit about that program and what they do. But we do have a question for you as well. What was your first experience, and how were you affected by domestic violence?
My first experience with domestic violence was when I was a child. My mother and my father got into it, and it pretty much resulted in my mother dying. Gun was involved. I don't want to get too into detail, but I will say that, and I only don't want to get too into detail because my dad's not here to defend himself.
That's right.
So like, there's a story that I was told growing up, and then there's a story that he told, but there's a story that I also haven't heard as well. You know, so like I said, they got into it. It resulted in me living in a household where I was actually abused. A lot of people have a misconception. They think that domestic violence only involves partners and, you know, male and female, but it also involves family as well. And my grandmother, she was very, very abusive. And I think it's because she couldn't bear to take care of me knowing that I was my father's. This caused me to grow up angry. If there's an emotion that I expressed mostly growing up, it would probably be anger. I had no emotional control. I wasn't emotionally intelligent at the time, so I would fight a lot. Anybody, you name it, male, female, even when I was young. Like, I just didn't see it as that. I just see it as, like he said, you trying me, right?
Wow.
So I became this very violent individual, and there's nothing that I probably wouldn't have done, even though when you're thinking in your rational mind, you're like, oh, well, I can't do that, I'll go to prison, you know. And my whole goal was never to be like my father, you know, so that really grounded me a lot.
You were raised by your mother's mother?
Yeah,
That would be
Unfortunately,
really
yes.
hard. That would be hard.
Yeah.
That would be hard.
yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I would have thought that,
It could go either way,
right,
right? It could go
Right.
either way.
but I got that
You got one way.
one way, right. Yeah, so it just caused me to be a very violent individual. If somebody crossed me, especially if you were an adult or something like that, or like a teacher or something like that, I started plotting revenge.
Anger.
Like, I bust out all the window. I'll give you an example. I was in elementary school, and one of my teachers reported me. I saw a kid getting bullied, and I hit the bully. But the teacher saw me. She didn't see that he was picking on somebody else. So long story short, sent me to the principal office. As a kid, you don't have that attention span to be around adults and hear adults talk. So the whole day I was just plotting, like, I'm gonna get this lady, I'm gonna get this lady, I'm gonna show her. So the principal comes in, he's like, just go home. School is over now. I made it my point to go to this, we had portables. I made it a point to go to the portables and start throwing rocks at the portables and busting the windows out. Yeah. They called the police, and the police officer looked at me and was like, I'll take him home. He had a talk with me, and literally that talk kind of changed me. I ended up playing sports. You know, I guess he just seen that I had a lot of energy and I needed to be involved in something to burn off that energy. But yeah.
That just had to have been so rough. While you were talking, when you said that, so I have grandkids, and I could only imagine if my daughter's boyfriend, because they used to get into it. So one of my daughters, she has dealt with an abusive guy, but fortunately it didn't get bad.
Right.
It was already bad, but you know. And I could only imagine if something freakish had happened and he had, you know, killed her, and now I have to raise his kids. And I love my grandkids, but I just think that there would be something.
Yeah.
There would be something, especially since her oldest son looks just like him.
Right.
And to look, that would be hard. That would be a whole challenge in there.
But that's a whole nother can of worms that no one really discussed. You know, that when, let's say it's a situation where it doesn't end fatally, but you move on. It might not just come from a grandparent. It might come from the other parent. You know, that area of resentment. You look just like your father. You act just like your father. You're being just like your father. Or my child would be here if it wasn't for your father. All of those other things. So that, you know, like we were talking about the domino effect. And that was the accountability that I had to have. And I think that's what finally made me be done. Is that I remember, because the longer you're in there, either you're coming down, but then your character changes, and it's a defense mechanism. And I went from being beaten down to wanting to fight back. Okay, and in the essence of fighting back, I'll never forget when I pulled a knife out on him, and I told him I would gut him like a fish. And meant it. And when I turned and looked and saw my children standing there, it was like, no.
Yeah.
I need to get y'all out of here, you know. So,
Can I just say this? Just a couple things. We are talking about domestic violence. I've
Yeah.
heard a couple people say getting into it. And that's the language that we need to kind of, it's soft. This is domestic violence.
Right.
This is verbal abuse, physical abuse. You know what I mean? But we say getting into it.
right.
And we want to start with our teens, and we're not going to say getting into it because it's not a choice. It's power and control, you know, domestic violence. Not that I'm saying anything bad about anybody here, but we say that. We've made it more okay. We made it more, we're starting to accept, and we say getting into it, that doesn't sound so bad. But domestic violence, and I just was looking at the stats, 2023 we had 85 people die in a combination of 66 incidents, but 85 people died. So what you're saying, it
Is that
affects,
in Milwaukee alone?
this is Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, okay.
In the state of Wisconsin, 85 people died, 66 incidents. So that's, we're saying it affects both sides, it affects the whole family. Yeah, it's not just the person that's being abused. A lot of these, the person who was doing the harm or being the abuser killed themselves. And sometimes we've lost children that had nothing to do with it. And whether we've lost children or not, when there's intimate partner, that's one thing, and then family violence is a different part of domestic violence. But in intimate partner violence, the two people that are they're in a relationship. One may go to jail, one may go to the hospital. These kids go to school in the morning. How is that
That's a lot.
affecting their day? We work with kids, we work with families. Like, how are they functioning in this?
They can't
So-
be.
So
You're
I
having
went
the same kind of
What
day as the
you're
parents.
saying you were angry
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
kid.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you be angry?
I went
We're-
to school.
The city's
Look,
angry.
violence in the home. I think about it. When I was little, I went to Hopkins Street. I remember it was violence at home. I was being bullied at in the 4th grade. I was being bullied at the Boys and Girls Club on 15th and Center, the Brown Way. Went to Hopkins Street School. I was being bullied there, and I had violence at home.
Wow.
It's crazy.
That's what we're saying.
That was crazy. And that was for the first time I was riding with my brother, probably like 6 months back, and we was talking about the book, and we was just, talking about the violence in our home and stuff like, And he said, no, first time it came to my mind, I said, I wonder what my brother's point of view was, like, because he's under me, and we all got a point of view when it comes to domestic violence, and I wonder how did it affect him, and he don't say nothing. Because I asked him, I was like, man, we talking about it. He was like, yeah, I remember, but yeah, you move on. Just like on the surface talk. And that's what me and my brother, but when we alone, sometimes stuff come out and it get quiet, because we grew up so fast that even when I went to prison for the first time, when I was facing 85 years, and I got 6.5, but when I was sitting, I remember sitting in Dodge, and it said I was 21 years old. I had just turned 21, but inside of me, I was like 10 years old.
That's right.
Because I remember my cellie, he was a Muslim, and he was a good brother, man. He was cool, but I didn't know that. I thought we was gonna be in a room for a minute together. I'm like, it's all new to me. It's my first time up north. All the other ones juvenile prisons like Wales and stuff like that. And he left the room, never forgot, my heart broke because I got connected to him. We was cool, and I'll never forget when he left. That night, I didn't have a roommate that first day. I felt like a kid. I was like 10 years old on the inside, but I was 21. Because I grew up so fast. You'll see the book.
Read the book, exactly. And I think all three and all four of us have said that a lot of times it's not who we think it is that's gonna be there to support. I know I work mostly with a lot of women and girls, and we have these conversations, and they're thinking it's gonna be mom, or they're thinking it's gonna be big sister, but oftentimes it's not. It's a complete stranger that supports or gives those words of encouragement. So do you have anything that you want to say about that healing journey? Was it mom? Was it somebody that you knew really, really well? It could be somebody else.
The thing about it is that unfortunately, the individuals that you would assume would be there will not. It took years later for me to understand that they have their own trauma. And unfortunately, especially in the Black and brown community, we've normalized this stuff. And we've swept a lot of things under the rug, and you will come before family members and loved ones that get over it. I went through it too. I survived, I'm still here, but are you really surviving? Are you really here? That's the question. So much to what stood out to me in your story was the police officer that took the time, instead of chastising you, bringing you to the light. And oftentimes that's what it takes. It takes advocacy from outside of the home, because safe space, that's not a safe space. And then being with family is not necessarily a safe space. You may, in fact, have to separate yourself. Even, and I hate to say this because I'm a believer and I serve the Lord, church sometimes it's not that safe space, because we've slown the Word of God so haphazardly. And I had to deal with my own thing, you make victims feel guilty for wanting to be free. And so you're in prison here, you're in prison there, you're in prison with your it takes advocacy outside of those spaces in order so the police officer was your advocacy, because he could have very well said, because he deals with that all the time, flip the script.
Yeah, lock them up, throw away the key.
Right.
He'll-
And even with my working in the prison system, I could very well be bitter towards men, but I'm not. And the reason why I'm not is because I was placed in situations where you did hear the other side. And so that has now essentially helped me look at my sons too. I'm not a perfect parent, but scolding is not nurturing. They need the love or whatever. And if there's an absentee parent and so on and so forth, what they're battling with, it's not about, this is an adverse effect of the things that you went through. And it's not that I'm walking around feeling guilty, but I can't take that approach necessarily. I gotta help him, or I gotta find the help that he needs in the places and spaces I can't help him.
I've heard of, so you didn't have your father, right? And you didn't have your mother. And
Or my father.
Or your father, right, because then he went to jail.
For a little while, and then he got out.
Okay.
Supposedly the gun wasn't registered, and it was an accident. These are his words, not mine.
Okay.
The story I got was totally different, to where he was the aggressor, and
Right. Yeah. Did you have both your parents?
I actually grew up with both of my parents at home.
Okay.
I did. I grew up, my parents are now divorced years later. We were adults before they divorced. But I grew up in my home, with both parents in my home. However, my parents were very young when they married. And their kids coming up, and I'm their eldest child. So whatever toxicity that was passed on to them, they in turn were giving to each other, and they in turn passed on. I love my parents. And my father and I have an excellent relationship now. And I give him credit for being a boomer. He is the most hip boomer. And I say that because he is an advocate for mental health. You don't hear that. And him and going through his own journey and being transparent about his childhood and my grandmother shot my grandfather. He survived it, but so there are a lot of things that were passed on, and when I look at it now, I watch my father struggle with that curse that could have been truly, it could have been worse.
Exactly.
And she struggled. I grew up in a home that was, but he tried. So I'm blessed in that respect. But yeah.
And that's one of our other questions. Like, what did you have for role models of a healthy relationship? How many people do you know right now that you can say, you know what, this is what I want my relationship to be like? Where are these healthy, you're saying they were married, they were together. Are we gonna, you know what I mean? We don't have to get personal, but
they were married. But was it a healthy relationship?
Exactly.
I'm saying,
No.
period.
Is it a
Different
healthy
thing.
Yeah.
Just because there's a
And
relationship doesn't mean
I
it's
actually had peers that envied me. Well, you got both parents in your
Yeah,
home.
I had
Your
that
father
too.
does
You
this
had
for
that
a
too.
living,
Yeah, 'cause I
and
grew up with
blah blah
both
blah. And I'm like, y'all have no clue.
You look healthy on the outside.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
'Cause
I
you're
think
married.
relationships. That's what I'm saying. Can you really choose a relationship? Because especially when you get to know somebody or whatever, you be like, dude, they
They
Oh,
crazy.
got all that going
They
on.
got a lot of issues.
Yeah.
But it's
The
a
Cosbys.
few people in my life that I can look at their relationship and be like, oh, I want this aspect of it. I don't want, I just want a certain aspect
This
of the
piece.
relationship.
Yeah. But you know what I learned from, so I grew up in a parent home. I'm an only child, and I was a daddy's girl, which I think affected me in a different way. But one of the things, just because that I learned with my mom and dad, because they were so very opposite, what two people decide to show on the outside is not always what's going on once everybody at home and them doors are closed. It could be, that doesn't
Exactly.
necessarily mean that it's abusive per se,
Right.
but it's not that, I won't say we were the Cosby Show out there, but you know, it's not that hunky-dory kind of thing that
Yeah.
you see. If you see us in public, we look
Right.
one way, but if you see us in private, you know, my mom, when we were in public, it was all, you know, oh, you know, I got this perfect kid and this perfect husband. But when we get home, my mom wasn't very emotional or like that at all. She, you know, she's like, if you try and kiss her, she's like, get away from me. You know, she was that kind. And dad, he just would go to see his public, you know, on the weekend and stuff. So just because it's a relationship doesn't necessarily mean that it's healthy. But I got a question for you.
Yeah.
You are the only one that really hasn't gotten into any of your stories. So you are a domestic violence advocate.
Yes.
And so how did you get connected to this whole thing?
Exactly. I say from survivor, well, from victim to survivor to now advocate and CEO. And that was a journey, a healing journey. I did not grow up with both parents, but I didn't grow up with domestic violence either. I found out what it was. And as I was going through it,
Wow.
I didn't know what it was. You know, towards the end, I looked one day in the mirror and I'm like, this is domestic violence. I was using words like getting into it. I was like, you know, people were like, are y'all fighting? And it's not fighting, you know. Not perfect, obviously, in a relationship, but I wasn't planning on having physical, verbal, and all these things going on. And then as the years, you know, my healing journey, and with the same person that you it took a long time to even process it all. And I'm one of those people like, okay, how did this happen? What did this happen? So I went to advocate to get my certification in domestic violence advocacy and really find out, like, how does this even happen in a relationship? I've had relationships before. They didn't end us together, but it didn't end like this either. And the back and forth, and it's such a cycle. And I'm like, I got all caught up in the cycle. I think you even said that something would happen, and then it's the roses, it's all these things, you know, to make up, and you're like, oh, it's gonna be okay, and then, whoa, something else happens, and then that cycle starts all over again. And I talk a lot about even the financial abuse. People don't even realize it, and that can come in so many ways and forms. And even just recently, just cleaning up some of that financial abuse, having stuff in your name and different things like that. When it's an irresponsible relationship, two people aren't on the same page and going towards the same goals, it can very easily happen. So yeah, that's kind of my story.
Okay.
And how I got into it, and the fact that I had no idea what to do, and I'm like, nobody should feel like that. I didn't know what to do, where to go, who to call. I mean, yes, you could call the hotlines and these things, but I think you need to see somebody who looks like you, see somebody who's been through what you've been through to really understand and share this. We're talking about secrets. We're talking about wearing a mask. I remember I became like lying. And I'm normally not a person that lies, but people ask me what happened. I was quick. I bumped, fell, scraped, all these things. And people knew. And that's another thing. People know. We're thinking it's a secret, but you're wearing sunglasses at 8 o'clock at night. Hey, hello. That's probably something, you know what I mean? But you're still trying to show up. You still have to get things done. I think you talked about that resilience, and I'm in school /work /mother. We got to show up for everybody else, and I never took that time. So that's a lot of things that we talk about and we do in our group. We're like, nope, it's all about you. You don't have to do nothing today. Go home, take a hot bath, turn on some music, whatever you like to do. We don't do that. We just keep going.
So I'm gonna ask another question, and I know that if there are, I can't see if there's comments and Trinity's downstairs. But I know that there's always this question, and I'm gonna say this first because one of the things that you said is someone who's been through what you've been through and understands. I really think that in this realm, that's so important because you're gonna always get, even though I'm very attached to it because I had a friend that was a survivor, and but still that question always comes up, and I'm gonna ask it in a different way because I know there's people out there that they think, well, why didn't they just leave? I know why they ain't just leave, but tell me this: the first time, and I'm gonna ask y'all from the flip side, the first time it happened, what did you think the first time? And I want you to think about it. He hit you the first time. What went through your head?
Yeah. And that's the part that we don't talk about. It doesn't start with hitting.
No, it doesn't. That's what I was
Again,
gonna
I
say.
said it earlier, it starts with love, ish, or getting to love somebody. And then for me, isolation, like I was living here in Milwaukee, but we moved way out, Cedarburg, somewhere. Like I'm like out here, verbal, and it's emotional. You talked about it, the jealousy, what you're wearing, where you're going, who it's cute at first. Oh, he must really, he don't want me going nowhere. There's nothing cute about that, or
It's not.
you can't wear what you want to wear, those types of things at first. So it's all a process or cycle, whatever we want to say. And then, yeah, that first time, of course, yeah, I did leave. But where are you going? This is your house. Or they together, your house, our house. Again, can you just pick up rent, first month's rent? I can't pick up like that. So you give yourself excuses to stay, or it's more comfortable to stay for that moment. But you begin planning and you begin, okay, this isn't what I thought it was gonna be. And then here come the gifts, here come the romance or whatever it is. You tone it, the apologies again, tones it down a little bit, and then you're already, you're connected to this person. We don't forgive, we don't this, so it gets to, that's where that cycle comes in. Yeah, we're gonna forgive somebody. Yeah, you start self-analyzing and assessing yourself. Well, maybe I was a little loud. Or what did you say?
Yeah.
Slick.
Yeah.
We as women, we can be. And from our past and things that we've gone through, maybe we are slick or maybe we are loud.
Still don't make it right.
Yeah, it doesn't. We're not making excuses for that. And then we know who this person. We chose them. So you're like, now we got to analyze that. Why did I choose this? So you go through a whole process.
The penitentiaries are packed with people that always deflect or play the, don't hold responsibility.
Right.
Because, it was the same way I used to have conversations like, man, she shouldn't have such and such.
Pointing
it's
that
like,
finger.
But as I went forward, I started to understand that it was me. I'm like, it's not the other person. No matter what they say or what they do, I gotta look. It's me. I gotta look at how I feel on the inside, and I gotta fix this problem because that person will be going with their life or whatever. I'm feeling like this inside because it just seemed like it transferred to the next woman, the next relationship I had with men or whatever. I wasn't even close to like men coming in my life. Because I didn't never have a father. I ain't like hugging no man. It was today. I'll be like, "What's up, brother?"
That
But
part.
it was just I wasn't emotional. But now I can feel today, and I just want to help me and understand by me being honest about it.
That's
It was
right.
hard, but that's what I'm
Exactly.
here for.
And that's what we said. We started out healthy relationships. Look what they look on the outside. It starts with you. I had just went through a divorce. I was just kind of going through life, and then, maybe somebody picked up on that. Maybe my confidence wasn't as high, or I was dealing with things I normally wouldn't deal with because I had been through a traumatic experience, divorce, and different things like that. And so, yeah, it happens, and you're like, one day you wake up like, this is not what I signed up for.
Right.
But to answer your question, I was thinking the very same thing. It doesn't start off with a hit. And I will never forget, we weren't married at the time, but he got loud and jumped in my face. And it startled me a little bit, but in my mind, I'm like, oh, nah, buddy, you got to go. Like, I ain't finna deal with all of that. Like, you're absolutely doing the most. Like, nah,
Yeah,
I'm good. I'm good on that. You know, seriously, and you know, kind of shuttered me a little bit, and I was just like, the lighthearted, funny dude that all of a sudden is now.
Prince Charming or whatever.
Yeah, and it wasn't even so much as him being Prince Charming. It was, you know, when you're, some women can relate, when you're boom, 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 serious, go, whatever, and then you don't really make time for it, and then I would have people say, you're too picky, you're too this, you too that, you know, good man's hard to find, all this jargon, and I was heavily involved with the church. I held a position. I was held a position in the church as well, and so that's where I met him. He attended one of my classes. I was teaching a class on intercessory prayer. So that's how I was introduced, and you know, little light dating here and there, whatever else not. But then when that happened, I was like. So then, of course, he comes back with the apology, I should have never, so on and so forth, and everything else. I'm like, okay, but I got my eye on you, it's cool. I'm very transparent about it now, but we had a hiccup, you know, fornicated. So, unfortunately, that one time led to me being pregnant.
Wow. That sucks.
So let me explain to you the mindset and the mind frame with that, you know. And it's not to say that we didn't play around or whatever, but that going in there, it was all it took. I called my son my one shot, one kill baby, because my first marriage, you know, I was married and didn't have a child for 2 years, so you see where my brain works, because I grew up in a 2-parent home, and so and granted my parents may have married young, but I am a product of marriage, and so these are the things that my father worked real hard for, because he actually, we didn't find out 2 years later, he wasn't a product of marriage. My grandparents didn't marry until she was pregnant, third child in, you know, so we. You know, you get all the secrets once people die.
So you ended up marrying
family secret.
Yes.
So let me ask you a question. Did you feel like marriage would change him?
I'm getting to that.
Oh,
That's the
okay.
thing, though. So it's a number of things. So obviously, I sat down. I was very depressed, and once I became pregnant, that's when that abuse came, and everything amplified. Gotta mind you, I'm a fornicator. I was sold out for God. I was doing this, that, and the other. I had these young women under me and everything else. So my mindset and the depression that I had over me and where I was in that moment, I felt like I was being punished by God.
That's deep.
And that I deserved every bit of what I was given. Now, mind you, that was the enemy playing with me, but I'm just saying that because I was getting, at that time, I was getting lashed out from the pulpit, called by my name.
What?
What church is this?
I'm not doing that. I'm not saying no. I mean, when I tell you I was attacked, because when you're a woman in leadership in a church, and then you're young, married, you have women that don't like you, you have men that don't like you. So you're up against a lot. And so, you know, the adversary is just having a good funky old time now, because, and I even had someone in position, you know, people complaining, and look what you did, you know, and I just felt
the judgment.
I just felt, and I mean, to get talked about from the pulpit, already had all this, and just, I would sit in church, and I would still go, and I would sit in church like this.
I wouldn't have.
And I would look out the window. And I was just so low. Now, the abuser, hey, how you doing? Da da da. They were good with
Excited.
him.
Oh.
But that was, and even going through
Mm.
that process, I had one of our court dates, because it wasn't our first court date. I had 5 court dates with that man. So you do keep, because he used Jesus. I've been praying, I've been this, let's get counseling, let's do this, this and that. Now mind you, like you said, I grew up in a 2-parent home. So when I married this man, we had already had 3 prior court dates.
Wow.
So I could have left her, and when I made up in my mind, I was done. I'm moving on with my, because even that time, I didn't date. I just wanted to raise my kids. Let's get married. Let's get right with God. Let's get married. Turns out that was, whatever. And so, and I'm sharing this because, like many of us said, well, why didn't you leave? Why didn't you? You got to understand where people's mindset and mind frame is at the time. And I grew up in a 2-parent home, and it wasn't a bed of roses, but my dad was a man's man. My mom, she'll tell you, he was the head of the house, but he was still the man. He helped, so I wanted that for my sons.
There you go.
I wanted, but like I said, the toxicity, now it's not just him. Now I'm becoming toxic. Now I'm flared up. Now I am coming out of godly character. Because I not only had children, and now I have a covenant with him. Yeah. So yeah, that.
I'm really glad that you brought that up, because we do see domestic violence terrible with pregnant women, and we're like, what is that? Why would that be a time? Yes.
With pregnant, you get the
Yes,
moment,
it's
and especially for me, I'll never forget
very
when I
often.
gave birth. After I gave birth to my last 2, and that was the very thing I said. I'm not pregnant anymore.
It's a very vulnerable
Wow.
time. Yeah. And people think
And
it's
that's
the
I've reached
opposite.
that. It's time.
Yeah, it's fine.
Because you were lucky. Unfortunately, you were lucky, because my mindset. This is what I was feeling at that time. But my good Lord is lifting me up, and buddy, it's about to go down. But that's not necessarily good either. But I'm just saying.
But it resulted in you becoming a person, started thinking in ways that you normally wouldn't even think. Like, you're this peaceful person. He brought out that side. Like, I remember when you said, I would gut you like a fish, and you like meant it, right? Right, because he pushed you to that and made you feel like that. And that's another result of domestic violence. I mean, it starts to affect you, and especially the longer you stay, you look up in the mirror, you really don't recognize yourself. Your behaviors have changed. Like, I wish you would.
Right.
Mess around and find out. Like, yeah.
And that's a good point. I spoke with a gentleman a couple months ago, and we were just having a conversation, and they were speaking on the other side and saying, dating somebody that's been through domestic violence, how are you going to handle that? Because they have triggers and all these different things they've been through, and then they're bringing in their stuff too. So it's like our whole community's like, we got to figure out a way to communicate, get along better. That's what we're seeing in healthy relationships, like starting with yourself. And that's what we do. We have a job readiness, but it's really not about that. It's discovering who you are, remembering back when you were a little girl. What did you want to be? Did you have goals and dreams? You forget about all that, and men too, but get wrapped up in these relationships and you forget about yourself.
Okay, so we are getting close to our hour, but we do have so far 2 questions.
Good.
One, okay, and a comment. How can you tell when someone is masking their abusive personality?
Well,
I mean,
It's a good one.
can you ask the question again? I'm sorry.
How can you tell when someone is masking their abusive personality? They're covering it up. Like, I think before you guys
Oh.
came, me and him were having a conversation, and I dated this guy. I felt like he was probably abusive because that whole possessive thing was there, that possessive, jealous thing. And he actually became my first stalker. But how can you tell when someone is masking their abusive personality?
Probably just overly nice, right?
They're overly nice.
So I want to get you to trust me, flowers for no reason type deal, but then still with the you can't wear this. And of course, if you're someone that has low self-esteem, you buy into, oh, he loved me. Like, oh, he all about me. I could tell because he don't want nobody else to see what I got for him. You get what I'm saying? When in reality, he really
It's controlling.
controlling you, right?
Yeah.
But you don't realize this until things start to escalate or until you have your own voice.
overly nice, but and also like a person that just don't admit that he had problems or that because I was counseling this couple, and the young lady, she was honest about everything, but when it came to him, he had this mask on, and it's crazy now. I'm telling you, it's crazy. But I knew it. I told her, I think you need to hold off. He wasn't honest about anything. He was like, no, he wouldn't take responsibility for none of his actions from his last two marriages. It was always deflecting, always blaming. I was that good person.
Yeah,
So-
red flag.
yeah, it was a
number
red
one.
flag, and look, and they showed, and I was like, man, and this young lady is hurt today because of that, you know.
And that's what I was gonna say is that pay attention to how they talk about their previous relationship. If there is no ownership in that previous relationship at all, then that's a red flag. That's a red flag because you know, we all, you know, we get into really, but you know, when they're just painting this person that, you know, they were this, they were that, you know, they used me and this, and then they wouldn't have got this without me, and da 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 da, and you know, whatever. And then pay attention to how they talk about the opposite sex and how they view them, their views.
Yes.
You know,
Conversation.
And I was also going to bring up, if you're someone that's coming out of DV, don't date.
Date yourself.
Date yourself for a while because you are still vulnerable, because anything that appears opposite to what you had is going to mask themselves, and then you're going to find yourself in the same situation, maybe not physical, but very manipulative.
Yeah.
I was down that road. So take the time to listen, date yourself, get to know yourself, heal.
Right.
And we do that to talk about the green flags. We talk about the red flags. What are the green flags of a healthy relationship? Are you able to communicate? Is everything, you know, combative or denial? These things. What are the green flags?
Yeah,
that
can we
you
disagree
want?
about something but still have a conversation and I still walk away feeling whole?
Agree
You
to
know,
disagree.
that type of thing,
Yeah.
you
Or
know.
someone who does agree with every single thing. I think that's what you were talking about. That's a red flag. too.
Yeah.
Red flag.
All right. Second question is, do we believe abusers can change?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We all
I
agree.
do. You know, the thing about it is we all can be, in some shape or form, rehabilitated as long as we're in environments that are conducive to that, you know, and that you have the advocacy and support that will help that. And the reason why I can speak to that is because my father is my hero. He wasn't necessarily my hero when I was a kid. I wanted to be like him. I wanted his approval. But to see how he's grown and developed and owned a lot of things for himself, and to see who he is today and how he's still working towards his healing, I mean, he's my hero. So I believe that a person can, but you can't do it.
Yeah.
And it is not for you to stick around until they do. You got to let
There
them
you
deal
go.
with their wilderness, and when they're ready to come out of their valley, you can't go down in the valley with
Yeah,
them.
no.
No.
All right, we got one more comment, and then I'm gonna let you get the final words from everybody, and then we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. So I don't know, this person might be having some stuff going on, because it just sounded like what you said a minute ago. Like when you make that, I don't know if you listening out there, you should listen to this one again.
Okay.
So somebody said most people recommend you get away, but what if they really changed? Everyone deserves a second chance.
I think you just said it. Like,
Listen, here's the thing. Everyone is capable of changing, but the thing about it is you don't want to get in a situation when you're trauma bonding, and you also need time away. Everything, addictive personalities, so on and so forth, they have to break away. Even at addict, they tell them to not date for you to separate yourself and isolate yourself. You can't be a part of that process. They have to do that alone. You have to break away. Like my ex, I still pray for him. And not just because he's the father of my children. Not just because at one point in time I loved him. I pray for him because I truly want him to be delivered. Because what he did to me is an adverse effect of what he went through and what he bore witness through growing up. And I don't want that to transfer over to my sons.
And I said, look,
But my praying for him does not mean that I have to converse with him.
Right.
Does not mean that I have to hang with him. It does not mean that I
Get
have
back
to
together.
go back together with him. None of those things.
no,
None.
none. I feel like being that person on the other side to this person that just texted in, I'm like, it's good for you to separate because he ain't changed, man. You know, there's no change. It was like I will apologize, but there was no heart change. There was no, it wasn't no relearning or unlearning something. I wasn't going through that process. So I say separate, and when that does happen, I had time to think clearly, like man, what I missed, you know what I'm saying? But I still didn't get no change. I was just waiting on another relationship. It was like, it was just like, okay, cool. So I was going into different relationships wounded, and then I was picking girls that was wounded. That was crazy, man. But I say separate, until that person gets help, because he may take your life. We don't know what
It don't happen
today
overnight.
holds, not tomorrow, because tomorrow ain't here yet. We don't know what today. You don't know what may trigger him. You may lose your life with this type of thought pattern. Because I don't even know what that thought. You gotta think to yourself, where did this thought pattern come from for you to even ask this question? That's what you gotta look at.
And herself.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and did he really change, or did you change? Are you walking on eggshells so things don't get nasty or whatever? That the change that you see and you think that you see in him is probably within you.
Wow.
Think about it. I mean, when somebody's doing things to you, like, how do you actually feel about them? Are you still in love with them from like the beginning of the love before the abuse started, or do you think you're in love with this person? You think you need this person because maybe this is the only person that you feel values you or truly values you.
Wow.
Men can be slick talkers. We can make you feel like you're on top of the world and then, not treat you accordingly.
That's right. And we don't have to decide everything right now. We're always in a rush. We don't have to decide for it to be completely over. You never want to talk to that person again. Or decide that we need to accept what's going on. Take your time and maybe work on herself, he or she herself, and then it'll come. You'll know. Change takes time.
Yep.
And it could change for 24 hours and then, the next 24 you're back to where you were at if you haven't gotten in here. and in here mentally. The change can't be just stop the physical.
Right.
It's got to be mental and a whole change.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get the final thoughts. Cause we almost at an hour. We might almost over an hour.
Can we end with this question? And what did you need?
What did I need? As far as leaving, or as far
Just
as
as when you were just going through your healing, what did you really
I'm
need?
still healing.
Exactly.
I
What
needed
do you need? Yeah.
I needed real advocacy. You know, I needed space to be vulnerable and not be judged.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not necessarily about being loved and other. You know, it's just, I needed space to be vulnerable and to be and to be truly advocated for. A lot of times we don't speak because we know that it's going to be the conversation of the next dinner table, or the next girl gathering, or the next church meeting, or the next prayer meeting. You know, it's that. Yeah.
Thank you. What did you need?
A new door. I just needed a new door to walk through. It was like I was in this same environment for so long, and I just needed a new opportunity, and that's what happened. I just got a new opportunity, and just get around people who this is like, I don't even know what word to use for it, but just get around people that were that saw the best in me, and they would pull it out of me, because I was so damaged, man. You know, the lifestyle I lived, I was damaged. I wasn't whole, man. And so I got people that I was around people that told me what it was. I needed that. I just needed people to be honest with me about who I was. Because when I first got, saved, and then you in the game, and you in there, you just telling the story, and it's just fascinating. It's just like you telling your testimony, but you ain't no. It ain't no heart change behind it. You ain't looking for somebody to be changed through it or nothing. I was just telling my story, and then there was people that was like, "Hey man, listen, you got a story, man. You gotta relearn, unlearn, and learn some things. Just speaking in my life. And now when I speak it, it's not I'm just here like speaking.
Yeah.
What I do, I'm hoping somebody that everywhere I go, I'm like, I hope somebody hear my message and change, because that's what I'm here for. That's what I was created to do. I found out what I was created to do.
That's right. How about you?
What did I need? I'd probably say like better examples of how to be. But then again, going through that, like, I can say this and that, but going through what I went through, it actually gave me examples of how I don't want to be. Right? So whenever I feel myself going towards something like that, or just being aggressive or wanting to retaliate on something, I think about, well, how do you want to be? And I just make sure that my behaviors align with that. So just having a better example, I would say.
Good.
And that's good. And I could say I kind of spoke on it, like I needed that advocacy, all of these things I needed. And I think that just a chance to be heard and acknowledged, like this isn't okay. Like everybody around you is telling it is okay, or not saying anything at all. So I think that's what I needed.
All right. I don't know what I needed. My relationships, I just look for a friend. That's what I need. I need a friend, someone who, and Leos, we like the loyalty. So I need the loyalty. I need the friendship. The compatibility.
Yeah.
I just need that whole thing. That's what I needed. But I want to thank everybody for coming out. We finally got this done. Hey.
Yes.
Well, thank you all all for coming and joining me here on Let's Talk About It
Thank you
with
for having
Xavier
me.
Fox.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
I might have to invite some of you guys back for a different show. We do a Girl Talk show, and then we have a Girl Talk Plus One show. So we're actually doing one Friday. We're filming again on Friday. So you guys make sure that you tune in on Friday for Girl Talk. That's going to be great. But I really enjoyed this, and I'm glad we got a chance to get it in for domestic violence awareness. That is very near and dear to my heart. A lot of my good friends are survivors and advocates. So this is definitely something that we need to take seriously. Stop asking why didn't you leave, and help them put a plan together. Because if you know someone that's being abused, they have to have a plan. I think the most murders are committed during the time when they're trying to leave,
Exactly.
because they don't have a plan. They can't just, especially if they got kids. So if you really want to help a friend or family member that's being abused, help them make a plan. Help be their escape route. All that kind of good stuff. So make sure that you visit my website, XavierFox.com. That will lead you to all of the social media platforms that you can catch the show on: Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. You can Google Xavier Fox and you can find everything I've ever done. So that's the end of this show. And until next time, stay safe and be prosperous. And we're out.